Hello everyone, my name's Ozzymitsu and welcome back to my channel. 2 years ago, I made a video outlining why I love the black and white anime. The reason for making this video was because the predominant opinion in the community is that black and white was the weakest out of all the series within the Pokemon anime. I created the video to share my love for the underappreciated series, as well as a way to let anyone who does enjoy black and white know that they're not alone. Unfortunately, due to a copyright complaint by the infamous ShowPro, the video was taken down.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I thought this would be a good opportunity to remake the video, as A, some of my opinions have changed since I last made the video, and B, I thought I could improve the production quality of the video. Let's get this video underway by firstly talking about the anime openings. I don't think many will disagree that the English anime openings for black and white were amongst the best. Rival Destinies is such a bop, and who can forget the iconic "It's not always black and white, but your heart always knows what's right." I know it sounds cliche, but these lyrics are so wholesome. When the theme would play during crucial moments, it added so much hype and entertainment value to those scenes. I also love the visuals to "It's Always You and Me." When watching these openings for the first time, I genuinely felt I was on a journey with Ash, Iris and Silent, something in my opinion the black and white anime did a lot better than other seasons. I'd picture myself following those glowing arrows, goofing around with the gang and watching my friends succeed. Now let's talk about our heroes. First of all, Ash. I understand a lot of people believe Black and White Ash is a result of a soft reboot, but I enjoy the fact he seemed like an excitable 10-year-old again. Personally, a major selling point of the Pokemon anime for me is watching Ash, a seemingly inexperienced and relatable character, going through the trials and tribulations of growing up whilst trying to achieve his dreams. I see a lot of my younger self in Ash. For example, the way he was so excited about catching just a Pidove. I could see myself behaving in the same way because I tend to get excited over things that aren't always viewed as a big deal by others. Now, I'm not saying Ash was deliberately written like this to make him more relatable, I'm merely arguing that his character in Black and White particularly resonated with me. I felt his personality mirrored mine, so naturally I became attached to him and was rooting for him throughout his journey. Also, an unpopular opinion, incoming alert, but I prefer this Ash. It felt more authentic to me, rather than him being this competent trainer with an already mature outlook on life as exemplified in his XYZ counterpart. As the series progressed, Ash matured whilst also learning a lot about Pokemon battling. Whilst he did have some goofy moments, he was still Ash Ketchum with a lot of spirit and a love for battling. His willingness to learn and succeed never went away, and you couldn't fault him for that. Sure, it was jarring seeing him acting so surprised by a move or a Pokemon he has seen before, but the Pokemon anime was never known for its solid consistency. I also think it's a bit misguided to think continuity equates to the season being any good. Sure, attention to detail or references to previous episodes is a treat, but it's not the be-all, end-all of what makes a show great, especially when there's no set formula when it comes to the anime. There doesn't have to be a continuous story. Undoubtedly my favourite character from the Pokemon anime in general. Iris is a heavily misunderstood and overtly hated character. She gets a lot of stick for her "you're such a kid" catchphrase when directed at Ash, but I honestly saw this coming from a very good place. Ash received empathic reinforcement from Silent whenever he made an error in judgment, or to put it bluntly, did something stupid. Silent adopted a more gentle approach, whilst Iris adopted the tough love approach. I thought this contrast between Iris and Silent mixed particularly well because it kind of obeys the laws of opposites attract. Perhaps this is why I adore their friendship dynamic so much. Iris didn't want to baby Ash to the point he wouldn't learn from his mistakes. Think of it as a good cop, bad cop routine. Iris on numerous occasions illustrated how much she has a lot of love for Ash. One of my favourite examples to use when defending Iris is the episode Rocking the Verbank Gym. The episode puts a lot of emphasis on how much Ash struggled against Roxy. When Ash was down to his 6th and final Pokemon Pikachu, who slowly accumulated more and more damage due to being poisoned, it was Iris's idea to dress up in eccentric clothing and give Ash the biggest cheer to try and drown out the cheers of Roxy's fans. You could really see how much she wanted Ash to succeed. You may be thinking, how does a simple cheer ignore all of the problems people have with her? Well, that's the point. They don't necessarily. I'm merely arguing that Iris's sole purpose wasn't just to tease Ash. What a lot of people don't understand about Iris is that she was a very damaged character. She has a lot of self-confidence issues growing up and didn't want Ash to suffer the same fate as her. She wanted to be a figure to Ash that she was missing when she was alone. To argue that Iris was there just to give Ash a bad time is a bit of a misguided opinion. When you look beneath the surface, you'll notice she wasn't a hypocritical character she was painted as. Sure, on the surface level you can interpret this as Iris projecting her insecurities on Ash, but this is a very simplistic way of looking at it. Things aren't always black and white. She was also portrayed to be a very skilled trainer. This was represented in the club battle arc. It went so well for Iris that her Axew learnt outrage. Sure, it was a shame Axew never used this move again, but hey, she was slowly becoming a Dragon Master. Also, who can forget the final round of the club battle where Iris went up against Ash and won? I'm not saying the Pokemon anime is sexist, but one trend I've noticed is when it comes to battling, not contests, the male characters tend to be favoured. It felt like Iris broke the mould. It certainly can't be argued she was carried by her Dragonite either, as her Excadrill and Emolga had some great wins under their belts. I also want to address my thoughts on her goals to become a Dragon Master. One thing that wasn't explicitly specified is what constitutes as a Dragon Master. If this wasn't explained, how do we know Iris didn't achieve this goal? The way I interpreted this is that this is Iris's ultimate long-term goal. When people compare her to Ash, I think this is a little unfair because they compare her long-term goals progress with Ash's quick wins and short-term goals. A Dragon Master could be anyone who has raised a competent Dragon-type Pokemon. They don't necessarily have to have a team of 6 Dragon types. I see Iris stacking her skills and perfecting them in preparation for achieving her end goal. You can't just have a goal and expect there not to be any obstacles or small stepping stones to take before achieving this end goal. It's called managing up. We also receive confirmation that Iris is doing well when she visits her hometown, and the village elder explicitly states how well Iris raised Axew. So it's not like the writers did nothing with Iris's development. Sure, it would have been nice to see more of this, but at the end of the day it's unfair to compare Iris's long-term goals with Ash's short-term ones like earning gym badges. One thing I want to quickly address before going into my analysis on Silent is that he isn't a Brock replacement, and people shouldn't see him as one. Of course, if you're going to compare Silent to a legacy character and expect that from him, you're bound to be disappointed. Silent was his own character with his own personality, goals and quirks. Just because he cooked for the gang doesn't mean he flat out replaced Brock. Move on. With my mini rant out the way, I loved his food puns and the way he was so enthusiastic about Pokemon and helping trainers bond with them. I adored his "it's evaluation time" line, and you knew he'd come up with some sort of wisecrack after this line. I love the way he did an Elisa impression so well. To this day, I'm upset he didn't win that competition. He totally deserved it. Not to mention the way he taught Trip a lesson and beat him in the club battle held in Ambassador Town with his Dwebble. I also really enjoyed his relationship with Ash. He was like a mentor to him and was always happy to give him advice. He was such an optimist and never wallowed in defeat. Another reason I loved Silent was the way he was so kind to people, even if they didn't always deserve it. Silent was an A-class connoisseur, whilst Burgundy was merely a C-tier connoisseur. He never made Burgundy feel bad about this and was always very polite with her. He was such a gentleman. One thing I wish the writers would have explored a little bit more was why Silent was so afraid of Purloin, but it was these quirks that made Silent so likeable. I briefly want to talk about a few characters from the anime who were recognised as rivals. I'm not going to go into all of them. Let's start with Bianca. What an absolute gem. She was clumsy, hyperactive, but so friendly. I really enjoyed her running gag with Ash where she'd bump into him and he'd fall into a body of water of some kind. Bianca, just like me, had an obsession with cute Pokemon. She would lose control when there would be a cuteness overload. I love this about her because it made her more relatable and likeable. I think the series treated Bianca as a half comic relief character, but also wanted to portray she didn't have a perfect life. In fact, she had struggles of her own. This was shown through her relationship with her father. He didn't believe she was ready to go on her own adventure yet. It really made me feel sorry for her and I just didn't want her to go home. particularly because she had come so far, but her father assumed because of her crushing defeat against Elisa, her overall morale was down and she just didn't know how to recover from it. It was great to see her father later agree, thanks to Ash and Elisa, to let her continue her journey. She later delivered some fantastic battles, as exemplified with her wins against both Trip and Georgia in the club's Flosion arc. Another character I wanted to talk about is Georgia. She was Iris's rival, and I loved the friction she and Iris had, particularly because she was a Dragon Buster who specialised in ice types. It's great to see Georgia gain some actual respect for Iris and encourages her to become a Dragon Master because she expects her rivals to be strong. I loved her short temper and the way she would say "funny" when Iris had a witty comeback. I don't know why, but I was always excited to see Georgia on screen again. Another well-written character that made me happy when she'd make an appearance because I knew we would be in for a treat. Let's move on to the Pokemon of the season. So I didn't want to talk about all of the Pokemon who belong to Ash and friends, but I do want to mention 3 in particular who stuck out for me and made the black and white anime more enjoyable for me, and they had such big personalities that I just couldn't exclude them from this video. So the more obvious one is Oshawott. Oshawott is so adorable. I loved his personality, the way he would come out of its Pokeball all confident, and when realizing the opponent was too strong, shied away from battling and hid behind Pikachu. I also loved the scenes where he was caught stealing Pig Knight's food. He was just such a glutton. Oshawott was a full package. He added such comedic value to the series, but was also shown to be a competent battler. I enjoyed his rivalry with Dawn's Piplup. It was just quite possibly the cutest thing I've ever seen. Iris's Emolga. It was so sassy, lovable, and I loved how Ash's Snivy kept her in check, as Snivy knew exactly when Emolga was trying to use her cuteness to get what she wanted. One of my favourite battles of Iris's Emolga was against Stefan's Sork, when it kept using Attract over and over again, and eventually Sork was paralysed by Emolga's static. What made it better was the way Georgia exclaimed, "Lucky!" It was little things like this that made the series so much more enjoyable to watch. Emolga provided some really enjoyable scenes. Her debut in Emolga the Irresistible is one of my favourite capture episodes because of the way Emolga got Iris and friends into so much trouble with those Swoobat. When the episode was over, I was itching for more Emolga screen time, and I wasn't disappointed when Iris captured her, so it was confirmation in my head it wasn't the last we had seen of Emolga. I also like to imagine in my mind that her hidden power is Dragon, just because it gives me some comfort. Was that just me? Silence Pansage. Again, I'm overusing this adjective, but it just fits. So adorable. Silent and Pansage had the perfect bond, and it was always a pleasure seeing it get some screen time. One of my favourite moments was when it dressed up as Pansage-ette and gave it its all against those snobbish girls and their obsession with Pokemon beauty. Another reason why I love the black and white anime was because of some standalone episodes, and whilst I won't talk about all of them as it's best suited as a separate video for another time, I will mention one to avoid the video being too long: The Lost World of Gothitelle. The reason I bring this up is because when Generation 4 was first released, I went through that too old for Pokemon phase and skipped this generation. It was the black and white anime that brought me back in 2012. In 2012, I was really unwell, both mentally and physically. I'd often lie there, flicking through different channels to escape the real world, escape the fact I was really unwell and take my mind off all of my troubles. One day I did this and I came across the episode The Lost World of Gothitelle. I immediately recognised it was Pokemon and it reminded me of the good old days. I decided to watch the episode in its entirety and it rekindled my love for Pokemon. The main reason for this is because I resonated with this episode as it taught me a valuable lesson. The episode starts with Ash and friends wanting to travel to Castelia City. They needed to cross the Sky Arrow Bridge to do this. When they attempted to do this, they are stopped by a very angry looking Gothitelle. Soon after, Ash and friends seem to be absorbed by a blinding light. Once they awaken, they seem to be in the same place they first started, only the Sky Arrow Bridge hasn't been built yet. Our heroes soon realise they have been trapped in Gothitelle's memories, which presumably she holds dear to herself. It involves spending time with a girl named Sally and serving food and selling tickets on Sally's father's water taxi, which was revealed to be going out of business soon. This meant that Sally and Gothitelle would no longer be able to spend as much time with one another. Things were made worse when Sally left to go to college to become a doctor. Gothitelle cherished these moments that she could no longer live. Although her memories didn't mean much to some, they clearly meant a lot to Gothitelle. Gothitelle would do anything to protect her memories, which is why she was so determined to stop Ash and friends from crossing the Sky Arrow Bridge. This meant a lot to me because during this period in my life I was longing to go back to a time where I wasn't suffering from so many health issues and depression. I wanted to go back to a time where I could spend it with loved ones just doing the mundane things in life. My memories wouldn't mean much to a stranger, it just seemed like a typical boring day, but it was these days that I longed to go back to. This episode helped me understand that not even the psychotype Gothitelle, known to be capable of distorting reality, can turn back the hands of time, so why should I worry about this? It doesn't mean I can't look back at these memories with fondness, but I still have more memories to make in life, and if I keep looking back, I'll never appreciate what is right there in front of me. This episode gave me a lot of comfort, and because I resonated with it on such a sentimental level, it really made me love the anime. This episode prompted me to start the series from the beginning, and I thoroughly enjoyed my experience. In the same merit of talking about standalone episodes, I want to talk about two battles in particular that made me love the black and white anime. They may not be fan favourites, nor am I arguing they are the best of the entire anime. I'm merely mentioning them because these were two battles in particular that really got me invested in the series, and I just really wanted to find out how things panned out. So the first battle I will mention is Ash vs Skylar. I love this battle because in the episode prior, Silent and Skylar battled when they discovered that Skylar doesn't bother doing real battles, but instead determines the results based on type matchups alone. So for example, if you choose an electric type against her flying types, she would automatically give you the win. Silent had some grievances with this method, but unfortunately failed to get through to Skylar because her prediction of the result came true. Ash owed it to himself, Silent, and even Skylar in some ways to show her the error of her ways. Unpheasant's sheer determination allowed Ash to win and go against Skylar's prediction, and the animations in this battle were incredible. It really was, as Skylar said, how an air battle should really be. The rival Destinies theme playing when Unpheasant uses aerial ace really got me pumped, and I love that Unpheasant got to be the focal point for a change. Its evolution was crucial for the win, and I felt that bit more sweet because it was Ash's first catch in Unova, which ended up becoming fully evolved. Beautifully written. Mwah. The second battle I want to mention is Ash vs Iris. I loved Ash and Iris's battle mainly because Iris beat Ash, and it was kind of a massive FU to those who said Iris wasn't a great trainer. I particularly enjoyed this episode because we saw a massive shift in Iris's once disobedient Excadrill come such a long way since then, and it really trusted Iris. It was that bond that allowed them to emerge victorious. The nice touch at the end was Iris winning the club battle competition and donating her awarded wings to the Village of Dragons. It really showed she was so humble, and even despite winning, didn't rub that in Ash's face. Surely if she was there to give him a hard time, as most would suggest, she wouldn't stop mentioning it, right? But it's convenient that people forget about that. But I digress. Let's move on to the Unova League. Now, this is going to be an unpopular opinion alert, but I actually love the way the Unova League was handled. I know that this is an unpopular opinion because whenever I speak to people about it, everyone tells me how wrong I am. But I actually like the fact that Ash and Trip face each other right off the bat. It allowed the viewer to see how well Ash has done, and when he beats Trip after some struggle with Superior's rap, Pikachu wins, and to me, it gave off the illusion that Ash actually had a shot at winning the league because he had already beaten his rival, who time and time again one-upped him. Alas, this wasn't the case, but that hope really got me invested into watching further, and I thought it was beautifully done. I also didn't mind the small interruption when they had a filler episode with Axio getting lost, because I was absolutely distraught that Bianca lost against Cameron in the episode prior. I needed an episode to get over that. I know this wasn't done deliberately, but this format really brought a lot of comfort to me and helped break the league up without it feeling too rushed. Another thing I adored about the black and white anime was the running gags within it. A simple formula, but it really gave me a few chuckles. This is one thing I loved about black and white. It wasn't serious all the time. It was nice to wind down and watch whilst relaxing. The first gag I want to talk about is regarding Stefan. Sorry, I mean Stefan. Stefan was definitely one of the more likeable rivals. I really enjoyed the running gag with the cast mispronouncing his name. I found it sweet that there was a shift as the anime progressed. The cast started pronouncing his name correctly. Felt like he was finally part of the gang. He was always there during the various tournament arcs, and it was nice that he had a friendly rivalry with Ash because it made them both want to work harder and become better trainers. Another running gag I absolutely adored involved Burgundy. Now, it's no surprise that I am a massive Burgundy stan. Burgundy was a Pokemon connoisseur and self-proclaimed rival to Silent. I loved the way she'd add random French phrases to her sentences to sound fancy, such as bonjour, it's evaluation time s'il vous plaît. I love this because she'd often mispronounce certain phrases. This really made her likeable and relatable though. She clearly wanted validation from others and I can't really fault her for that. It would have been fantastic to see her being upgraded to a B-class connoisseur, but this is probably because I'm a bit of a Burgundy stan and I wanted to see more of her. She may be a C-class connoisseur, but she's an S-tier character in my heart. Ooh. Another running gag which probably isn't that impressive to anyone else, but it involved Don George and his identical relatives as a nod to both Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny. It was nice seeing the throwback in a different form. It made me feel all nostalgic and I thought it was done brilliantly. A final running gag is about Cedric Juniper. Old Junie has a habit of not completing his sentences, which leads to some confusion and often ends up having the opposite effect of what he intended it to mean. An example of this is when Ash asked to go with him to the ruins, he responded with, "I never," which led everyone into thinking he was saying no. He later continued his sentence with, "Refuse bright young folk." I liked this gag because it reminds me of how I often start a sentence and I end up getting distracted and not finishing what I was going to say. It then leaves my friends confused and sometimes they get annoyed with me because I haven't finished what I was going to say. So I could somewhat relate to this running gag. Whenever Cedric would laugh completely oblivious to the confusion he caused, it honestly just made me chuckle. So there you have it. These are some of the reasons as to why I love the black and white anime so much. Of course there are more points such as Dawn returning, but I wanted the focal point to be on our Unicorn heroes. But you gotta admit, that high five when she first came back was absolutely epic. I do think I enjoyed Black and White because I watched it with an open mind, as I didn't have any preconceived ideas of what the anime should be like after Diamond and Pearl's strong ending, as I hadn't watched this until after Black and White. When you bring unrealistic expectations to a show, it's doomed to not live up to those standards. You end up disappointing yourself. Try and enjoy the series for what it has to offer, and if you're one of those who assume the series is terrible because of the majority, I urge you to make your own judgment call. At least give the series a chance. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave this video a big thumbs up because that really does help me out, as well as subscribing to my channel for more Pokemon content. But with all of that being said, I'll see you guys whenever I upload next. Bye!